Hey, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on NewsTalk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO in Lubbock, Texas. I encourage you to follow me on Twitter, Chad Hasty Radio. It's always fun when we gain new followers there on social media. So a writer for the Los Angeles Times with an op-ed, The Case for Restricting Hate Speech. This from Laura Beth Nielsen. She's a sociologist and a legal scholar. She writes, I struggle to explain the boundaries of free speech to undergrads. Despite the First Amendment, I tell my students local, state, and federal laws limit all kinds of speech. We regulate advertising, obscenity, slander, libel, inciting lawless action, just to name a few. My students nod along until we get to racist and sexist speech. That's right, sexist speech. We got to outlaw that now. Some can't grasp why, if we restrict so many forms of speech, we can't restrict hate speech. Is sexist speech really hate speech? Okay. Why, for example, did the Supreme Court on Monday rule that the Trademark Office cannot reject disparaging applications, like a request from an Oregon band to trademark the Slants as their band name? And she puts, as in, Asian slant eyes. Yeah, well, the band didn't say that. You did. The typical answer is that judges must balance benefits and harms. If judges are asked to compare the harm of restricting speech, a chair's core constitutional value, to the harm of hurt feelings, judges will rightly choose to protect free expression. She writes, but perhaps it's nonsense to characterize the nature of harm as nothing more than an emotional scratch. It's a reflection of deep inequalities in our society, and one that demonstrates a profound misunderstanding of how hate speech affects its targets. Basically, what this lady is calling for is one big safe space and a lot of trigger warnings because millennials and her undergrads can't handle life. Remember, this is coming from the Los Angeles area. You got UC Berkeley. You've got college students who can't handle freedom of speech. They can't handle conservative ideas. And what better way to protect the little snowflakes in her undergrad classes than to ban conservative thought? Oh, well, I'm sure she doesn't want to do that. She just wants to ban whatever she considers hate speech. Like, I don't know what you would consider hate speech. Anything that goes against the LGBT community, she writes. That should be something that is considered hate speech. Really. Because, there are some countries around the world that say, in fact, our neighbors up north in Canada, there was recently an article where they went through and said it was hateful, a scripture was hateful, that was being taught in a Sunday school class. That it was too hateful. Didn't need to be taught anymore because it was too hateful. So are we going to start regulating what is said on Sunday mornings or whenever you may go to a worship service, not just to a Christian church, but what about those who maybe worship Islam? There are a lot of things that might be said that could be considered hate speech when it comes to Islam. Got to think about that one as well. She writes in here about how hate speech is really, it hurts those who are disadvantaged groups, and that they have to live with hate speech under limited circumstances. She writes, the KKK can parade down Main Street. People can't falsely yell fire in a theater, but can yell the N-word at a person of color. Who does that? Are we having a lot of parades these days where people are chanting out the N-word at people? And if that does happen, aren't there usually some consequences, like, I don't know, being punched in the face? I've seen that on YouTube a few times. Now, I'm not advocating for you going out and punching anybody in the face for saying the N-word, but there are real-life consequences to free speech. One of those consequences might be getting punched in the face if you're walking down Main Street yelling out the N-word. It's quite possible. By the way, the reason why some people have free speech is because we do have free speech in this country. If you go back, and she makes the argument that, hey, there are restricted forms of speech. Yeah, you're right. And there need to be less forms of restricted speech. Those who are purist about freedom of speech, as I am, I'm on the radio. There are things that I can't say because I'll get fined by the government, or could get fined by the government, and I could get fired from the radio station, and the government could fine the radio station. But let me say this. What also helps out with freedom of speech means I can't get locked up for dropping the F-bomb on the air. I won't go to jail for that. I won't go to jail for saying how great Trump is or how awful Trump is. I won't go to jail for those things. The government can't come after me for those things. She writes that we need to stop this free speech stuff because it only protects the powerful and popular. That's not true at all. Every group, every so-called disadvantaged group has freedom of speech in this nation. She writes about the panhandlers, and I guess this is where she's going to try and really gain a lot of sympathy here. She writes that cities have been able to ban panhandling because it annoys people. She writes the legal justification is the targets of begging, commuters, tourists, and consumers have important and legitimate purposes for being in public, to get to work or to go shopping, and the law therefore protects them from aggressive requests for money. Oh, well, damn. I can't believe that the city is protecting me from homeless bums who are aggressively asking me for money. How dare the government do that? You know, I should give more power to those bums and allow them to aggressively ask for money. In fact, we should just be able to, as bums, they should just be able to walk up to you and grab your wallet and say, good day, and leave with your money. Come on, lady. What are you trying to do here? She writes in this that frequent verbal harassment can lead to various negative consequences. Racist hate speech has been linked to cigarette smoking. No. Also to high blood pressure, anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, and requires complex coping strategies. Exposure to racial slurs also diminishes academic performance. I hope the folks who are going through anxiety, depression, and PTSD because of the N-word aren't listening to rap music, because it's all throughout rap music. So are we going to restrict the N-word in rap music? I wonder what she would do there. She says these type of negative physical and mental outcomes which embody historical roots of race and gender oppression mean that hate speech is not just speech. Hate speech is doing something. It results in tangible harms that are serious and in of themselves collectively amount to the harm of a people. The harm of perpetrating discrimination and of creating inequality. She then goes through and says, hey, every other advanced nation bans hate speech. We should as well. Well, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong about that. And it's pretty un-American to say it, and it's pretty anti-Constitution to say that as well. We need to celebrate freedom of speech in this country. Doesn't mean you have to agree with what is being said. Free speech in this nation means I can't go to jail for something that I say. Free speech in this country is something that must be upheld, celebrated, and protected in this nation. When we are seeing precious snowflakes on college campuses who can't handle conservative thought, conservative opinion, conservative ideas, when you have people who are talking about going into churches and saying that that is hate speech, what is being said on a Sunday morning, it is not up to you to decide what is hate speech. It is up to the rest of us to decide we don't like what's being said and we're going to leave. And if it harms you that much that you start breaking down and have to go smoke a cigarette, then maybe you should leave that area. Listen, we need to protect freedom of speech in this country. We don't need to extend this ban on speech that writers like this for the Los Angeles Times, a sociologist and a legal scholar, Laura Beth Nielsen, she claims that we would be better off if we restrict freedom of speech. I don't think she's right. I think she's completely wrong. But she has the right to write an op-ed saying this, and no one's going to throw her in jail for it. But I will call her what she is, an idiot. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time, NewsTalk 95.1 FM, 790 a.m. KFYO.